So I'm so excited to welcome Christie Turley to the stage. Christie is a growth marketing strategist, and she sparks innovative and high growth marketing in businesses worldwide. Her superpower is uncovering hidden brand DNA and crafting the brand positioning that multiplies impact and inflow, leading to massive results like one client who grew from 0 to 15 million in under a year. She has launched her career while juggling college classes, and by the age of 24, she had grown two businesses by more than $30 million. Since then, she started 8 businesses, including her marketing firm of 17 years, Limelight Alchemy. Christie is the author of the book, The Intuition Led Business, and the host of the Intuition Led podcast, which is how I found her. An engaging speaker, she has shared the stage with Hay House CEO Reed Tracy, marketing legend Dan Kennedy, and many New York Times bestselling authors. She lives in the Rocky Mountains with her husband of 18 years and their 2 children who came miraculously after many years of intending. So welcome, Christie. We are so excited to have you here.
Thank you, Christine. So let's talk about the simple yet powerful shift into your zone of genius. If you want to make a real difference in this world, you must know your distinct difference. I'll say that again. If you want to make a real difference, you must know your distinct difference. And that zone of genius, that distinct difference, is as unique as your DNA. And if you invest your precious energy outside of your zone of genius, then what's going to happen is you're not going to feel as fulfilled. You're not going to make as big of an impact that you desire. And not everyone wants to go out there and make a big impact, but you existing makes an impact in this world. You existing is creating ripple effects that you will probably never know the impact of. If you really want to feel fulfilled in whatever you are doing at home, at work, if you have a business, you must understand what that God-given genius zone is. And one time when I was talking about this with someone challenged me. They said, my zone of genius, I don't think I can monetize that. I feel really stuck in my business. Maybe you felt like this in your career or even at home. And you think, no, I should be doing this. I should be doing this. This is what I know. And, my passion or what I'm really great at, you can't monetize that. And what I told this person in the moment, and it felt like an answer from God, I said to them, you know what? God doesn't make mistakes. He gave you a genius zone. He gave you spiritual gifts to share. He doesn't make mistakes. Why wouldn't you be able to express those spiritual gifts, those gifts that are intangible? When I say spiritual, I don't mean, I mean those intangible gifts. Why would he give you those if you couldn't use those in exchange for material resources? It's simply an exchange of energy, your best self in exchange for abundance and prosperity and money. So I'd like to challenge some of those beliefs that you might have. And I remember when I first started my business, I was a few years in, and I had to really get honest about my genius zone, because I don't know about you. I feel like I have a lot of talents. Sometimes I feel like I was almost cursed with a lot of talents, because people will ask that question, oh, what's the one thing? What's the one thing that you do really well? And I would always resist that because I felt like I did a lot of things well. And I really had to get honest about what is truly in my genius zone. What is it that lights me up? Yes, I'm great at a lot of things, but what is it that lights me up? And when I got honest about that, I was able to start hiring people that had genius zones outside of my genius zone. And that really led to me feeling a lot happier at work, a lot more fulfilled, less like a slave. Yeah. And everyone else that I hired, they were able to do a job that they really loved too. It wasn't just about me. It was about them being able to serve in their highest capacity. So I want to share with you this shift. It's the acronym of shift. So let's start with the letter S. S stands for a couple of words. The first word that it stands for is should. Should is your new bad word. Should is all sorts of guilt and obligation from parents, from society, from bosses, from teachers, all wrapped into one. It's all of your programming, your conditioning, everything that has been told to you as a rule. These are the shoulds. Whenever you catch yourself in everyday language saying, I should do this, or you should do this, catch yourself and correct the language and start using empowering language. Start using words like, I choose to do this, or I choose to be this, or have this. Get rid of the supposed tos. Remove that guilt. This is going to take a while. This is going to take practice. When we've become so accustomed to using certain language, it's habit. So it's going to take some time. Brain psychology says this. It takes time to develop those new pathways, those new ways of thinking. And so be patient with yourself. Have compassion. But in my house, the word should has been outlawed. So purify your language. Language is what creates. And you want to move from the should and the guilt to the choice, the empowerment. I choose to, or I choose not to. That is really, really important. When we remove that, there is room for more good, more light, more of what you love. The second word that S stands for is shelf or shelved. What are some of the talents, the passions, the amazing gifts that you have shelved, that you have put on the shelf? Some people call this putting it on the back burner. Oh, I will do that later. Oh, I do not have time for that. Well, let's look at what's on that shelf. Let's look at it, because chances are there is something on that shelf right now, even if you've done similar work to this before, chances are there is something on that shelf right now that you can pull off, dust off, and start using and really start enjoying again and coming back to a sense of mastery, of feeling like, I know this is what I love. And even if you're not great at it, maybe you don't consider yourself a master at it yet. If there is a burning desire, like, yes, I love that, that is a clue. That is a clue that it is possibly in your zone of genius. So look at that shelf. And a lot of times the should and the shelf go hand in hand, because the should made you put whatever it was on that shelf. And so I encourage you to remove the shoulds and replace it with the choose to, choose not to, and to look at that shelf, look at what's on that shelf and examine it and consider putting it back into your life. The next word is H. And that's another 2-word part. It's the highest good. What is in your highest good? I spent so many years going from task to task, from event to event, busy, busy, busy. And very few times would I sit down and just be still and just listen to myself and listen to what my soul was calling me to do, listening to that inner voice. And I used to be a master at task lists. That's not necessarily something I want to consider in my zone of genius, if you know what I mean. I lived and breathed that to-do list. I don't do that anymore. What do I do instead? I ask my intuition, my inner voice, what's in my highest good to work on right now? What would be in my highest good to work on right now? And I'm constantly having that check-in all day long. Sure, I might have a to-do list in front of me to kind of jog my memory as to what needs to get done, but I am always looking at that. And let me tell you, I have found such freedom in that. And I have also found amazing synchronicities in that, because something that I might not normally have said, oh, I need to work on that first. Maybe it wasn't at the top of my to-do list. I work on that because that feels like that's in my highest good. I work on that. And then a couple hours later, I'm like, oh, that thing I worked on this morning would be perfect in this spot, or it's already done, or yeah, it's already ready because I'm checking in with my intuition. My intuition knows better than my brain. Okay. And I know that might be hard to accept for some people. I know it was for me because I do value my intelligence, and I have definitely leaned on my intellect almost too much in my life. And for me to say, yeah, my intuition is way smarter than my intellect, yeah, that's an interesting thing to admit to oneself. But your intuition always knows best. And the other word or phrase that H stands for is your higher self. And you can think of your higher self as your ideal future self, the most perfect version of you, the one that has overcome everything. And recently I was working with a client, and we were putting together a new brand for her. And she was putting together a photo shoot on her own. And I'm in another state and I'm guiding her through this. And I reminded her, I said, your higher self has already pulled off this photo shoot. You have this in you already. All you've got to do is go forward in time and pull it back into the present. And later she told me that was the one thing that was keeping her going. She would go into a store and find the exact prop or the exact outfit she needed to pull together for this photo shoot. She went into Nordstrom Rack and spent 15 minutes and found everything she needed for clothes. And I was like, wow, that's a miracle. And she's like, it was because of that advice. I was really able to hone into my intuition. And there's this analogy I like to use, this metaphor rather, about light and light refracting. When light refracts, it refracts at a specific angle. That angle is 42 degrees. If the light refracts at 51 degrees, it's not as bright. It's not as beautiful as the rainbow that could be. If it refracts at 39 degrees, it's kind of visible and it'll probably disappear quickly. And this 42 degrees, if you're looking at a rainbow, it has to do with your orientation, your eyeballs, your orientation, how you're viewing the rainbow against the clouds with the sun. So that angle is made up between you and the sun. And if you think about that, think about the sun as your higher self or God source. When you're in alignment, when you're in that perfect, precise 42-degree alignment, the rainbow, the impact, the expression of your genius zone will be the brightest it can be. And that's what I mean by asking, is this in my highest good? Is this in alignment with my higher self? If it is, it's precise. It's that 42 degrees. And it's just like going to a chiropractor. You know, when you go to a chiropractor and you're like, my back's a little out of adjustment. It needs an adjustment. It's out of alignment. And the chiropractor can get you back into alignment, but a few days later, you might be out of alignment again. That's why it's important to be constantly checking in with your higher self and your highest good. And that brings me to I. I is for intuition, that inner voice. And that is what my book is all about, that Christine mentioned, the intuition-led business. And practicing a relationship with your intuition each day is so important. Intuition is something that we all have, yet very few of us know how to really maximize it. Very few of us have a true relationship with it. And it's so important to practice that, to spend time to be still. And for people who are really active like myself, it can be difficult to be still. It can be difficult, especially if you have a mind that is constantly thinking or exploring or imagining or very creative. Your mind can tend to be busy. And those are the people that need it the most. Let me just tell you, because when you can be still, when you can clear away all the clutter, all the mind clutter, and just be, not think, not do, but just be, and pray, meditate, whatever it is that feels aligned to you, you will get the most glorious answers. And I spent a lot of time asking people for their advice. What do you think I should do about XYZ? Or what's the best way to market nowadays? Like always keeping on top of all the conferences and, to stay on top of my craft, my career in marketing, and joining masterminds and buying courses, and always feeling like there was something I might be missing. There might be something that I don't know. I need to know it. I don't know if this relates to any of you. Ask yourself if it does. And what I found was when I really invested in intuition, in conferences like these, where you're able to explore your spiritual side and really be able to get in touch with that inner part of you, that deepest part of your soul. When I started to do that, I lost the need to join masterminds or ask people advice, because I knew the best advice came from within, not externally, but internally. The best advice I've ever gotten was from my higher self, from God and source. They know best. I know best, not other people. So next time you feel tempted to go out there and maybe crowdsource some advice on Facebook, think again and say, maybe I need to take this to prayer, to meditation. Maybe I need to be still and think on this more. And sure, use the external as a reflection, as a mirror, as a way to just take in information. Use your filter, use your discernment, your power of your intuition. And I tell you, the best answers come from that. The movie Spaceballs is a parody of Star Wars. And instead of Yoda and the Force, we've got yogurt and the Schwartz. And it's by Mel Brooks. It's funny. It's from the 80s or whatever. And there's one point in the movie that really stood out to me, even as a young girl watching this movie, that, at the end of the movie where the equivalent of Han Solo has lost his ring, the ring that's supposed to be the Schwartz or the Force, the ring that's supposed to be all powerful and give him all these powers and help him to know things and do things, he lost it. And he tells he tells Yogurt, which is the equivalent to Yoda, he tells him, I've lost it. What do I do? And Yogurt says, I found that ring in a Cracker Jack box. The power's inside of you. It's always been inside of you. And that is so true. We need to stop giving away our power and stop looking to other people as the guru. You are the guru. You have an inner guru. The next letter is F. And there's 3 words to this: faith, frequency, and flow. Faith is all about having faith that God, the universe, source, your angels, they have your back. It's that kind of faith. It's the kind of faith that you don't worry because you've given all that worry over to God, source, the universe to take care of. It's faith that you're capable. It's faith that things will turn out exactly how they're supposed to. It's faith that you don't need to know the how. You don't need to know the how. You don't need to know the next step. You will be guided. It's trust. It's being free of doubt, free of worry. And that is all necessary. All of that is necessary to allow that stream of heavenly assistance to flow, for that intuition to be able to speak to you. The other thing that's necessary for that flow is frequency. Everything is energy. Everything is frequency. Nikola Tesla, famous inventor, not the car guy, that's Elon Musk. Nikola Tesla, he said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you need to think in terms of energy, vibration, and frequency. And so that means making sure that you are In a positive state of mind, Einstein said that we cannot solve the problems with the same mind that created them. That means you need to elevate your state, see above the problem, get to that 100,000-foot view, be able to see your problem as a little speck down on the ground. And when you can elevate your frequency and have that faith will drive out any kind of doubt or fear. It will help you to be in that positive state and know that you will receive the answers. As soon as you start to doubt, maybe I can't do this. Maybe I'm not talented enough to hear my intuition. As soon as you start thinking that actually shuts down a part of your brain that is linked to learning. And that is from neuroscience. So it's so important to not shut down that brain of learning and to have that open mindset and be in that positive state. And finally, flow. This is all, if you want to just envision how water moves, this is how intuitive insights flow. It's here 1 minute, it's gone the next. So you want to be able to capture those intuitive insights and be able to write them down. As soon as you get out of meditation, write them down. If one hits you in the shower or on a walk, write it down as soon as you can. And the other thing about water, and if you think about it as a stream going down the river, if that water hits a block along the way, you might not receive it. And what are the kinds of blocks? These are things like doubt, like I mentioned. They could even be limiting beliefs. A belief that you learned from childhood or conditioning, or, oh, I couldn't be that, or even a should. Those are blocks. You might not receive the intuitive insight in the same way that you would have otherwise. So that's why it's so important to raise our frequency and to be in that state of faith for us to receive that flow of intuitive insights. And finally, T. T is for transform and timing. This transformation, this shift of living this way, of asking what's in your highest good, of listening to your intuition, of all these things that I've talked about, removing the shoulds, looking at the shelf, finding what lights you up. It takes practice. It doesn't come overnight. And probably the best metaphor for transformation that we are all familiar with is a butterfly. I learned something really interesting about butterflies. So between the time that a caterpillar, that the butterfly is in the state of being a caterpillar and actually becoming the butterfly, there are these cells that start showing up in the caterpillar called imaginal cells. And these cells start showing up one by one. The caterpillar tries to get rid of the cells. They don't like the cells. And pretty soon, there's no choice with the caterpillar. The imaginal cells consume it, and it drives it to create the cocoon and become the butterfly. These imaginal cells are the cells of the butterfly. And that is so similar to when we are going through a rebirth, when we are in a state of transition, like the theme of this event. When we are in that state of transition, it's uncomfortable being in that in-between, not really a caterpillar anymore, not really yet a butterfly, and feeling like, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel like this? Why is it hard? Why is it whatever the mind clutter that comes up? Just know it's normal. Just know that you can embrace that time of transition and know that everything happens in divine timing. The other word for T, timing. Prince, the former artist, the late artist, I should say, Prince said, it took me years to become an overnight success. And that is true. This life is all about progress. It's all about evolving. And one time you get to be a butterfly, and then you start a new cycle. And metaphorically, that means you're moving up to the next level, and you start again. And you have your next, if you ever played video games, you have your next level to clear. And when you clear that level, you go to the next level. It's never ending. It's progress. It's cycles. You know, these are all cycles. So know that you can have the grace for yourself to know the right timing for you to step out into the light as a butterfly in your next phase. Know that it will happen almost without you thinking. Those imaginal cells will take over and it will be the divine right timing. Be patient with yourself, especially if you're looking to share your gifts in a new way. Be patient and know that you will have that right timing. You will know when it is right to share those right gifts and with the right people. And you will be shown by your intuition when it's right. So when you can be in that feeling of divine timing and knowing that things will show up when they're supposed to show up, take it from me, a girl who waited 7 years to have a family and did all sorts of things until we finally were successful and we have our 2 little miracle girls. There were many times where I was like, I want to force it to happen. Children of all things are divine timing, right? But it applies to so many different areas of your life. And when you know, when you don't have to doubt yourself, when you don't have to prove yourself, it's in your knowing. That zone of genius is in your knowing. Own it. Own your zone of genius. You won't have to prove it to anyone. You will just know it. So I want to leave you guys with some tools to be able to start opening up this intuitive side of you and developing it. We're never done. We're never done with this. So even if you feel like you've had some practice and you have some knowledge, I invite you, whether you have a business or not, to download a free digital copy of my book. And that is available on intuitionledbusiness.com//free. And I believe Christine will put that up on the slide. And I want to really just like instill in you that even though this title of this book says business, a lot of this applies to life. I've actually had that feedback. I made the choice though. I made the choice to make it say business on the cover. And this book will help you to develop your intuition and give you some insights into discovering your zone of genius. And so I really encourage you to download that for free. Now, I've been told that we can have some questions. So if you would like to have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat, or I think we can be unmuted. I think that's what the tech people were saying is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah. So if you guys have a question, you can type it into the chat. Someone said, thank you for the book already. And guys, I highly recommend this book. I love this book. It's so great. And it really goes into detail about like specific ways that you can get in touch with your intuition, which is really cool. So feel free to type into the chat. If you want us to pull you up, we can. If you just want to ask a question and get an answer, we can do that too. So feel free to do that. So Christie, thank you so much. I wanted to just ask you to share a little bit, because I know, what you're talking about is so important right now, right? I think in the last year, everyone's seeing like, hey, there's so much conflicting information, and sometimes I don't know who to trust, or I don't know what to do. Like, and my answer is always, well, like that's exactly when you need to kind of get in touch with your intuition. But I know a lot of people don't even know like the very, very first steps to that. Someone said they also read your book. Just
read April, thank you awesome. So much. Oh, I'm so glad. I would love to hear any takeaways that you had from the book in the chat if you want to share. Thank you.
Yeah. So Christie, I would just love for you to share kind of like a really, like, I know you went through some really simple steps already, but like, what's one thing people can do every day that can help them like get in touch? Like, what's like the easiest thing that they could do?
So the simplest thing to do, and I talk about this in I think it's chapter 2, is the rule of take 8. So every
that's
day.
Right. April just typed in, that was her favorite part.
Oh, that's Awesome. Perfect. I love synchronicities. So April says her favorite part is take 8. That's
I
hilarious.
typed that right when you said it.
So yeah, take 8. So what that means, this is the rule. So you've got 8 minutes, 8 hours, and 8 days. So I'll tell you how to use this. So 8 minutes a day. That's all it takes. Just check in, ground yourself. I offer some breathing techniques, super easy, prayer, meditate, whatever you feel like. Here's what I do in my 8 minutes. I just close my eyes. I say a quick prayer. I ask if there's any like intuitive messages or any instructions for today, any divine guidance. And then I just listen. And sometimes I hear things, or I have a thought or a visual come to mind. I go into depth in the book on the spiritual senses. Different people have different ways of receiving that intuitive information. It's very important for you to understand how you receive it. So that I just say that because I don't want you to think, well, I don't receive visuals in my mind, or I don't hear things, like I must not be special. That's not true at all. It just means that you have different spiritual senses than I do. So I do that. And then sometimes I feel like I go over to the bookshelf and I pull off a book, or I look at cards, or I do different things to just, something's going to talk to me. It's like there's no accident that I feel like going over to the bookshelf and picking up that certain book, or something almost leaps out in my eyesight, like, oh, I need to go look over there. And almost all the time I receive something that's so perfect, something to heal, or something I need to know about myself, or something that honors myself or helps me to deepen my self-love for myself so that I can serve others in a more powerful way. And so that take 8, that 8 minutes is so important. And then what I also encourage you to do, this might be pretty out there for some people, like kind of difficult to wrap your head around, but 8 hours. Take 8 hours a week to just be, to explore, to work on something that you love, something creative possibly. Use that time to use that exploration part of you, and see where you want to dive deeper, or read a book, or whatever it is. Go out in your car. When companies have employed this, where they allow employees to do whatever they want for 1 day a week, they have found significantly improved innovation and productivity and creativity, not to mention profits. So there is actually research that backs this take 8 hours. So wrap your head around that. And then the other thing is 8 days a year. So take 8 days a year to be. The Mayans, the ancient Mayans, had this part of their calendar, which is actually the equivalent of our number 0. And the hieroglyph for this was the seed. And I love that symbolism, if you can follow me, because that time to just be, those 8 days a year, is a time for you to just be, to plant new seeds, to reflect on the past harvest and look forward to the new seeds that you want to plant, and to just really be with yourself and create and explore. So that is simple to remember. And the thing about the 8 that's really interesting, I talk about this later in the book. If you just envision the number 8, this is a self-charging system. When you can take this time to really be in your intuition, imagine in the middle of the 8 is your intuition. And so when you go out on these different curves, one curve that you're going to have is self-care, making sure your batteries are charged, that you are in a positive state. When we're fried, when our batteries are low, we can't be above the problem. We can't elevate ourselves. So that self-care is important. And then down below is creativity. And you could also say productivity. But I feel like the intuition is like so key to what is ahead of us. We had a pretty crazy year last year, having a crazy year this year. Don't know if anything's going to get less crazy. So, if anything, we're in uncharted territory, uncharted waters. And the way to feel grounded and not to sink below the craziness is to be in touch with that intuitive flow of information so that you can feel safe and grounded in your own skin, and you know what the best thing for you to do is for you. And the thing about rainbows that I didn't mention is rainbows will always appear to people in different ways. So I will not see the same rainbow as you, because physically speaking, my eyeballs cannot be in the same place as your eyeballs. So my alignment is different than your alignment. And this is so important to remember when we're hearing voices or reading ads or wanting to do XYZ like so and so, or, we're comparing, oh, I want to be like them. Well, that's what's in alignment for them. That course or that formula worked for them because they're in alignment to it. What's in alignment to you could be totally different. So that's why it's so important to be in touch with that intuition.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christie. And we did post the link to the book in the chat, and it's also on the dashboard. So if you guys leave for lunch and come back to the dashboard, you'll see all of the speakers' information in there with their pictures. So thank you so much, Christie.
You're welcome. And I'll leave you with this final quote. This is how I started out, and this is how I'll end. If you want to make a real difference, you must know your distinct difference.
Perfect. Thank you.